Thank you so much. Yeah, 谢谢大家. It's like such an honor to be here and to talk to everyone. I know many of you from the community. Many of you I call 阿姨 or 叔叔 because we grew up together. So thank you very, very much for all of your support and your help. So yeah, I guess I'll just start. I hope I can speak in English. I hope that's okay. And if you have any questions, you can ask in Chinese or English, and I can understand, I hope. So yeah, I guess I'll talk about actually, when we started from the very beginning, right? Growing up in Utah, I think it's a very interesting experience. So I'll talk more about like childhood a little bit, and then talk about what led me, why did I start a company? Why did I decide to do this crazy thing? And how did my parents feel and everything? So we can talk more about that too. But I wanted to start with, growing up in Utah as a child, the first time I realized I'm Chinese was actually in preschool because my parents would, sometimes for lunch, they would cook me Chinese food, and I would bring the Chinese food like shrimp or like baozi, that kind of stuff. I would bring, to school, and the kids would be like, ew, that's so gross. It smells bad. Like Chinese food is disgusting. And so I feel really bad. And I remember I would throw away the food when I was 4 years old. So I would throw away the food. I would come home and I told my mom, I want French fries and chicken nuggets. And of course, my mom, she didn't know what that was. And she's like, wow, like my kid is already becoming, American, right? And that was when I first realized I'm Chinese. And then I guess the funny story is when I, entered high school and then college, especially in college, the same kids who make fun of my food, they're like, you, Chinese food is gross. Now they post on their Instagram, on their social media, Facebook, they post pictures of their Chinese food that they have. And they're like, this is so good. And they love Chinese food. And I just find that so funny because, in high school, I would be eating my French fries, my chicken nuggets, and then my friend next to me is eating Chinese food. So I think it changes a lot over time. But that's when I first realized, wow, like I'm Chinese, and I learned over time to love, the culture, the food, and everything, of course. So, but anyway, so I guess my story is, I grew up with all of you in this community together. I go shopping at like Dazhong and the Chinatown supermarket, right? Like we're all the same kind of people. I see many of you at parties, 打麻将, right? Like 扑克牌, we all play together at the Chinese parties growing up. And it was a huge part of my identity, even this week it was like 包饺子 with my friends. So it was like a really nice kind of community. But I think then, the first question people ask, I think, is because we're this community, first question people always ask me is, how did you get into MIT? And I think it's a good question. And so it's hard to answer. I think half of my answer, I think 50% is just luck. Just pure luck. Like every year, it's it's luck, unfortunately, in the college admissions process. So, maybe one year they need more people from Utah. One year they need someone who plays violin or plays the piano or on the soccer team, right? So every year it's just almost like lucky. Half of the admissions process is just luck. And then for me, the reason why I applied to MIT because it was like, one is, it's like it's a good school, but also I feel like it would be a culture that I would, like really appreciate. Hopefully I can learn a lot at the school and stuff. But yeah, I think the biggest thing is just, having good essays, having a good story to tell, and being kind of different and unique and being genuine and honest, in your application process. So that's just one thing I always mention is it's hard to answer that question, but I would say most of it's luck. And then the rest of it is just skills, learned over time, and having some unique story and identity. And definitely being Chinese, coming from Utah is very unique, and it's definitely something to be proud of, something you can write about. It's something I wrote about. And a lot of my friends write similar stories of, growing up in a place like Utah, which is so strange to people. So anyway, when I entered college, I immediately, in high school, I was one of the top students, I feel like, at Hillcrest. But when I went to MIT, my first exam at MIT was a physics test, and I got a 21.5%, but a very low score on the test, one of the lowest in the class at the time. And I remember feeling so like embarrassed and ashamed, because here I am, Hillcrest is an easy high school, right? Like a public school, anyone can enter. And I was one of the top at Hillcrest. I go to MIT, and on day one, I'm one of the bottom students at the school. My test scores are very low. I started worrying, like, can I graduate? Am I going to be okay? And then I don't know anyone here, if anyone's in college or, during like studying or, looking for jobs and stuff. But for me, in college, there's two types of students, actually. There's the type of student that, they know what they want to do, right? Like I have a friend who's like, since I was 5, my friend said, oh, since she was 5 years old, she wanted to become a doctor since she was 5, but, and another friend who's like, since she was like 4 or 5, she wanted to work in, like in healthcare or in aeroastro and like the space industry. But for me, in college, I still had no idea, actually. Like maybe many of your kids can relate. Maybe your kids are similar situation. If you ask what do you want to do? Some kids are like, I don't know, right? Like I have no idea. So for me, that was me. My answer, every time people ask me, I would say something different. Oh, I want to be biologist. I want to be researcher. Next time I want to be a computer scientist, So I took many classes at MIT, and I always did really bad. Actually, most of the classes I did pretty bad. So in biology in high school, I did IB, AP biology, and I got the top score. I got a 5, I got a 7, I got very high scores on like all of the exams. But then went to MIT, I took intro to biology. So this is like basic biology 101 at MIT, and I got a C. I got a C, like a very low grade in this class. And I was about to major in biology because that's what sometimes a lot of kids like, oh, I want to major in biology because I'm good at it, because I got an A in high school. So, that was a really bad reason. But so I remember I went to the professor and I said, I want to major in biology. And the professor's like, you probably shouldn't, if you get a C in introduction to biology, you probably shouldn't major in biology, right? And I was like, oh, okay. So then at the end of the school year, we had to declare a major. And so I remember I'm so confused. I don't know what to major in, but we had to say something. So my friend said, oh, why don't you declare, like, there's a very easy major at MIT. It's called management science, which is like 管理. And I was like, oh, okay. I don't know what 管理is, or I don't know what management is. But I decided like, okay, I put that as my major because it's the easiest major at MIT, and maybe I will survive, maybe I will graduate. So I declared that major, and that was the best decision I've ever made. One of the luckiest decisions, because like if you think about careers and jobs in the industry, 管理 is like actually very close to finance, by the way. So MIT, that major we took, you have to take finance and marketing and operations and accounting classes. So it was a very practical major, and there are so many jobs that have, that are hiring for a skill set that you have. So for example, every company needs a finance person. Even if you work at a nonprofit, you have to have a finance person to help you, with the treasuries, with running, the accounts, and with the accounting work, and with fundraising, right? So finance is a very important skill set to have. And thankfully I didn't know. So I fell into the major by accident because the other majors were too difficult for me. So that's the real story, was that everything was too difficult. So I just declared, management as major, and then got very lucky because the classes were easy, but also there's so many jobs in the industry that involve finance. And so it was great. I really enjoyed it. Every summer, my first summer, I interned at Zions Bank, came back to Utah. Second summer, came back to Utah again and interned at Goldman Sachs. And it's like every summer I can intern at a different bank, a different company. And there's so many great jobs out there for this major. So I got very lucky. But then the second question people ask is, why did you start your company, right? Why did you start a hedge fund? And, like why? And so the real, sometimes when I do interviews on TV or like, I don't know, other company channels and stuff, usually I just say, oh, I really like finance, but actually that's not true. So the real reason I started a company is out of a string of failures in my life, actually. So my third summer internship I had, my junior summer, which is like almost my last year at MIT. So it's my last summer to do internships. And I had a very difficult internship experience at a bank, a very large bank. There was like a trading internship, so we do sales and trading, and for the final project we had to come up with a presentation, like a stock pitch. So you had to pitch some kind of stock to the team, to the company, but the problem was like, so I spent the whole summer preparing for presentation, and I decided, because my background is more technical, I come from like, I'll go to tech school. So I want to come up with a more technical strategy. So traditionally, for stocks, when you look at which stocks to trade, you look at the, fundamentals, right? You read the news about the company, or you maybe look at how much money they're making, how much revenue, profits. But for me, I decided to do something more quantitative. So quantitative analysis is like, I look at the history of the stock, or maybe two stocks, so Google and Facebook, and I look at their graph like over time, the data, and I can analyze patterns in the data. So if Google goes up and Facebook goes down, maybe they'll come back together one day, right? So that's called a mean reversion strategy. So I looked at different strategies and came up with a quantitative strategy to pitch during my final presentation for the internship. And so I pitched it. I thought it was really good. I really liked my strategy, but my team, my boss, they hated it. They really didn't like it. I remember someone laughed at me and they said, "This is ridiculous. Like, it's not going to work." And the team I worked on is a non-quantitative team, so of course they don't understand. So I made a big mistake. I should have, presented a regular fundamental strategy, but instead I presented a quantitative strategy. So yeah, they laughed in my face. I remember crying. I actually cried. And then that day, I remember I went home crying, or actually my friends told me, "Oh, you cried," and I was like, "I forgot. I totally forgot," because it was such a long time ago. Very bad memory. So of course they did not give me an offer. So that day, after the presentations, they call you into a room and they give you either a full-time job offer, or they, basically they say, "Sorry, we're not going to give you an offer." Bye. So that was my last day. So they did not give me an offer. I tried so hard. The purpose of internship is like you want to get an offer. And so I didn't get the offer. I came home, or came back to my school actually, for my last year of college. And I felt very depressed because I was like, I worked for 3 different banks and I tried so hard, and this summer I finally got my perfect internship I really wanted in sales and trading, and they didn't give me an offer. They don't want me. And so my friend said, "Well, why don't you trade the strategy? The strategy you did during the whole summer that you did research on, you should just start trading. And like, if you fail, if it doesn't work and it loses money, then at least they were right, right? And that's a good thing. Or if it does work, then that's good, right? Then you get, either way, you get closure. You get some sense of like, this is okay. I got some closure on the problem." Because I always felt like something, I felt kind of depressed and I don't know, after just demotivated after that internship. And so I came back to my dorm room and then started trading the strategy. And back then, so this is like 10 years ago, I got an account on what's called Interactive Brokers, actually. It's like a brokerage platform. And today there's so many different platforms you can trade on. You can do Robinhood, you can do, E-Trade, Ameritrade, there's many different platforms. But back then, I think Interactive Brokers was one of the larger kind of platforms. And so I got an account there, started a little, trading the strategy a little bit. And I remember the first time, of course, it didn't work. But after a little bit of tweaking and editing and refining the strategy, it worked after a while. It started working. And by the end of the year, by the end of the school year, when I was graduating, we made $40,000. And I started with 1,000. So because I made $1,000 from, saved up 1,000 from the internship and used that money to just trade. And then by the end of the year, we made 40,000. I was very surprised because okay, first off, I was in debt. I had student loans I had to pay off. And suddenly I can pay off my student debt. I can pay off my loans because I suddenly had the money to just from trading my strategy. And so that was when I realized, oh, like I don't need to work at a large company in order to, feel happy, in order to be financially okay, be stable, hopefully. And so that was why I started it was, at first I felt like I had no choice, but I didn't get an offer from the company. So I had nowhere to go and just started, my work. I spent so many months working on that project. And so started just trading my project. And then it started working. And so we decided, let's just make this into a larger company. And so that's what we did, was just started this company. Of course, at the time, especially like, Chinese founders, right, is so rare. Back then, there's not a lot of founders who, can start a company like this. And for me, it was definitely very difficult at the very beginning because we didn't have enough, even though we made some money. 40,000 in a company is not a lot of money, actually, because we need to hire people. We need an office space. We needed so many, like computers, and we needed to buy data, we needed to hire auditors, accountants, tax people. So the cost really adds up. And, it's very common, like for a company, if we have, I remember like 20 people in the company, right? Every month we spend maybe $200,000 or $300,000. So actually 40,000 is not a lot of money. And so for me at the very beginning, it was very difficult. I remember my mom, had to, like, I don't know, my mom probably doesn't feel comfortable saying this, but like she made a lot of sacrifices for me in order for me to run my company. And that involves, one is blindly supporting me. I think that's number one most important thing, but also not just my mom, by the way, it's all of you. It's, my grandma, it's everyone here, right? Because blindly supporting me, even though my company can fail. 90% of startups fail at the end of the day. And so it's that going into like unknown, going into taking a big risk. And it's also embarrassing, right? Because sometimes back, especially, for Chinese culture, like failure is like seen as embarrassing. And so if my mom and everyone's, it's like, we're all putting our reputation on the line for this. And I suddenly realized I don't have enough money. And I need to fundraise. I need to go out there, find investors, find venture capitalists and hedge fund investors and everyone else, and try to raise money for the company. And so so just remember, my parents were so worried, like, why would you do this? But they also supported me because, just letting me do this. And so I was really grateful for that. So anyway, so now I'm going to talk a little bit about fundraising, like so for startups, right? The number one thing a startup needs is, unfortunately, it's money, unfortunately, because look, if I wish, like, look, if we were all kids of billionaires, if we were all born into very rich families, then of course, right, it's easy to start a company because you have the money, you can hire employees, you can pay people a salary, like it's a lot easier, but we didn't have any money. So how did I fundraise and what did I do to raise that money? The number one thing I did was I signed up for every single pitch startup competition in town. So every time there's a startup event, any company hosting startup event, I always sign up and I attend. So sometimes I can go on stage, they invite me to pitch like a 1-minute pitch. And then sometimes it's just, I'm in the audience and I listen to other startups pitch, but just showing up and saying hi and networking and meeting people is, for me, very important to fundraise and meet the right people. Sometimes what happens is I'm in the audience and I say hi to someone and they're like, oh, wow, you're doing a hedge fund. Like, I don't know about hedge funds, but my friend does. And then they introduce me to a friend who, maybe works in the hedge fund industry, and the friend can help me a lot. And so that's how you grow a network is, when I was 20 years old, I had zero network. I come from Utah, right? I don't have the Wall Street, New York network, but then over time, like, everyone starts from zero and we all grow that network over time. And so that's how I raised the money. So I'll tell you maybe one funny story of the first check we ever got. The first time I ever raised money was an event hosted by Microsoft, actually. So what happened was Microsoft was hosting a startup competition. And so they invited 30 startups to sign up. And so I quickly signed up for the event. And I showed up that night, and every startup has a 1 minute. That's it, just 1 minute, 60 seconds to pitch your company. So I spend all day just preparing, PowerPoint. We get to do like 5 PowerPoint slides and, memorizing my pitch. And then that day is an evening time, and we show up at the event, and it's my turn to go. And so just a funny story was the people before me, they were like a chocolate milk company. There was a startup that was doing knitting and crochet, and they crochet like mermaid tails for humans was the topic that the startup that they did. Other companies, there's a company that does like better toilets or better, different kinds of fun products. And then it's my turn. I go up on stage and I say, "Hi, I'm Christina Qi. This is my company Domeyard, and we do high frequency trading." And as soon as I said, and high frequency trading is 高频交易. So as soon as I said high frequency trading, of course, many people and many judges and people in the audience, they were like, like, "Ooh, this is bad." Like one judge was like, no, very unhappy.
Sorry, I listen to you on my phone.
And that's because like in high frequency trading, it's a very controversial industry. And so and then someone in the audience, or a judge, raised his hand and said, "So what you do is like front running, and like illegal stuff." And I'm like, no, that's not true. We don't manipulate the markets. We don't do front running. Like, we get our data from the public sources only, just public exchange, the stocks exchanges, and then we trade that data basically. And the only difference is we just create technologies so we can trade it a little bit faster, right? And then that was 1 minute. 1 minute was over. So I still had my cover slide with the logo of my company, and I didn't go through any slides, and that was it. My time was up. I just spent 1 minute defending myself. And so of course I knew I lost. I knew this is bad. And so I went down from stage, and I just felt like very sad because I applied to so many competitions all the time to pitch my startup, and I've never won. I always lose these competitions. And by the way, now I look back, I'm like, of course we lost. Like, I'm pitching a money-making machine, right? Like, nobody wants to invest in a, not that it's more like, who would choose a company like that to win, right? It doesn't look good, right? You want to choose a chocolate milk company, or choose the mermaid company, or the toilet company, right? Choose like a company that's fun or funny or exciting, right? Don't choose like a money. So now I understand. But back then, I still, because you put in so much effort, I put in so much time, and so much emotion into the event. Of course, whenever we lose, it always hurts. And so for that Microsoft event, there were 25 prizes and 30 startups. And the prizes, they're all really small prizes. So maybe a gift card to, like a In-N-Out, or a gift card to Cafe Rio, like a local shop like that. And sometimes it's like AWS credits. So, or Microsoft, now it's Microsoft Azure credits or something. And so the prizes were small here and there. The top prize was like $5,000 cash, plus some other gifts and, gift cards and stuff. So they announced the 25 winners, and we didn't win. So we were one of the 5 losers. And so after that, there's a reception. So everyone is eating, they have like cookies and chips and stuff. And we're grabbing food, and then everyone's congratulating each other. And, I felt like leaving. It was late. I was tired and I lost. And so I was going to leave. But before I left, I did one thing correct, which is I went to the organizer and I told her, "Thank you so much for organizing this event. Thank you for, this opportunity. It really means a lot." And she says, "Wow, thank you for participating." Kind of awkward, like, "Oh, thank you for trying. Good job, trying, participating." And then she said, "Oh, by the way, do you know this guy named Gary? Gary's also in the hedge fund industry." And I said, "No, I don't. I don't know anyone in the hedge fund industry." And so she brings me to this old guy. He looks like, maybe 70, 80 years old and very tall. His name is Gary. I don't know him. And Gary starts talking to me. He's like, oh yeah, I saw, your pitch and like, what are you working on? And so we start talking and we talk and the event's over. They're turning off the lights, everyone's already leaving. And he says, let's continue talking. I want to learn more. So we go downstairs to like one of those, a cafe downstairs, and we continue talking. And he says, and he keeps asking me lots of questions, and he's like, what do you need right now? Like, what are you looking for? Why are you here? And I said, I need money because like I don't know, I'm starting a hedge fund and I don't know what I'm doing, but I need money. I know I want to do this. That's all I know is I just really want to work on this. But in order to run a hedge fund, we need more money to hire a team to launch our hedge fund. And so the guy, he grabs a checkbook from his pocket and he says, from his bag, and he says, well, how much money do you need? And I'm like, wait, you're gonna write me a check, right? Like, and he says, no, it's fine. And then he introduces himself and he says, I'm Gary Bergstrom. I started my hedge fund in 1970 from my dorm room in college when I was your age. And now his company is called Acadian Asset Management. They're $100 billion. They're $100 billion multi-asset manager companies, one of the biggest companies in Boston. And so he wrote me a check and he handed it to me. And I'm crying. I can't believe this because, it's like a roller coaster, right? Like earlier today, I just lost a pitch competition and I was crying sad tears. And now he's writing me a check. I'm crying happy tears. And I feel like I just won the grand prize, like the jackpot, because he wrote me a check of $100,000. And then, for me, I can't believe like, wow, I've never seen so much money in my life before. And, so much money. So next day I called the bank and I said, can you hold $100,000? And the bank laughed at me. And I was like, of course. Right. And so then I deposited the check and couldn't believe it. And so that was the first check we ever got was, just a very small check, but the rest was history. After that, just really, really grateful, to be able to raise more funding. And because such a big, very famous company invested in us, because Gary runs a very big company, it increased our reputation by a lot. So that really helped. So let me talk a little bit. Let me think of what else to talk about. I guess really quickly as well, maybe a couple lessons we learned from the startup world. So I don't know if anyone has heard of, there's a famous book called Principles by Ray Dalio. Ray Dalio is like a billionaire. He runs a company called Bridgewater. Bridgewater is the biggest hedge fund in the world. So they're also like over $100 billion, very, very big company. And so when we started our hedge fund, me and I have two co-founders, and all three of us said, let's write our own principles, based on like millennial, for us, a younger generation, like what we want as a company. We didn't like Ray Dalio's principles, but so we wanted our own better, principles. And so some of our principles, for example, were we wanted a flat managerial structure. So everyone's title at my first company, everyone's title is called partner. And a good reason for that was because we were hiring people 2 times, 3 times my age, and I want them to feel equal, to feel welcome on the team. And so we called them partner in the company. And then another principle we had was I wanted to hire bigger name service providers, like household for accountants, right? Let's hire PwC or Deloitte or some big, name that everybody knows, KPMG, like a big company, or for tax as well, just hiring big name companies because we don't have a reputation, because I know we look like kids. We don't look like a billionaire investor. I don't look like Ray Dalio. And then we had other examples too, but I'll just use those 2 examples for now. Over the last 10 years of running my company, almost all of the principles we wrote at the beginning, they turned out completely wrong in the end. Everything was wrong, and some of them almost killed my company. So, for example, I mentioned everyone has the same title in my company. Very bad idea and very big mistake. And the reason why is because there's a difference between fairness and equality. We were equality, right? Everyone had the same equal title, but that's not fair to many people in the company. So for example, we hired an office manager. The office manager's job is to clean the table, clean the kitchen, schedule my meetings, right? Like it's just office work. We can pay them like, I don't know, $50,000, $60,000 a year. This is 10 years ago. Now we can't do that anymore. But back then, we pay them like $50,000. One day, she brings me to her, into my office. She's like, calls me in for a meeting, and she says, I'm a partner in this company, right? And I said, yeah, you're a partner. And she said, well, I want a partner level salary because all the other partners make more money than me. And I was like, oh, you're right, and then I had to explain, well, that's technically true, like you are a partner, but also your job is, there's economy, right? Like, her job is easier to get. Anyone, even, anyone can get this job, right? It's like an easy office manager job. It doesn't require training or PhD or anything. But some of the other positions we have, like research roles that, require like a master's or PhD or computer science, that kind of really difficult roles we have that, of course, we pay them more. Or people who are older, with 20 years of experience, of course, we pay them more because they're more in demand. So that's when I realized we are not being fair. We are just being equal. And there's a huge difference. So that really hurt us in the end because people were leaving our company because we weren't treating them fairly. We were just treating them all the same. So that's one big lesson. The other lesson I mentioned, hiring the big name companies to work for you, like a big name lawyer or big name accountant or tax or any other company, right, to work with you. At first, I thought it makes sense. Like, I don't have a reputation. Let me hire a famous lawyer that has reputation. The problem is they will treat you like their smallest customer. So we had an administrator who was late to deliver what their job is to deliver financial statements every month. And we have a regulatory deadline every year for the, financial statements. And it was already April and they passed the deadline. And I'm like, what happened? I've been calling them and I can never reach them. And finally they emailed me and they said, sorry, we have bigger customers to deal with. And as a startup, that's the last thing you want to hear, right? As a founder, for anyone, you never want to hear, sorry, we have bigger customer over here to deal with. And so that brought us in a lot of trouble, by the way, because we missed the deadline, regulatory deadline. So we got audited, we got in just kind of a lot of messy work because we missed that deadline. And it was like, so I realized at the end of the day, like we should hire people who treat you like you're a king, who treat you very well, right? So yeah, so those are some of the lessons learned. Anyway, I guess I'll talk more about like some of the other bigger lessons for me as an entrepreneur would be the number one thing for any career, anyone, is rejection, like normalizing rejection, handling rejection. Okay, because how do I describe this? I get rejected every single day in my job, in my life. I get rejected by investors. I still get rejected by, lawyers, accountants, like many companies don't want to work with me. And rejection is normal. It's a part of, even job candidates. Many people apply to my company and they reject us. We give them an offer. We gave someone an offer recently, like a VP, level, really high level role, very high salary, and they rejected. They said no. So of course, like, we get rejected every day. And so just very important lesson for me is like, that's normal. It happens to everyone. And if you're not being rejected enough, then maybe it's like, you're not trying hard. You should, as an entrepreneur, especially, it's good to put yourself out there and put yourself in positions where you get a no. And there's nothing bad about no, by the way. Like, no is a good thing. It means you can move on and go to the next opportunity, right? And keep going. In college, I remember when I applied to jobs for the first time and I got rejected. I got a lot of rejections. My first rejection, I always remember, because the first rejection I received hurt the most. It was the most painful because I was like, wow, this company doesn't want me to work for them. And so it was a very painful time, I remember. But now I get rejected every day. So it's like, oh, I call it a mountain of rejections. You just pile on a mountain of, put this new rejection on the mountain of rejections, move on and just keep going, right? When I'm fundraising, when I'm raising money for my company, I get rejected by 100 venture capital, 100 investors reject me. And then one says yes. And that's good. That's a good thing. So So yeah, that's one lesson that is really important. The other lesson that was for me very important is also you do not need to be an entrepreneur. You do not need to be a CEO in order to be happy, in order to succeed, in order to make money. Many young people today feel pressure to become an entrepreneur or become a CEO, that you must start a company or you must become a billionaire. And I think that's a very actually like, that it sounds fun because I think in the news you hear like even from people see me in the news and I'm winning so many awards and they're like very like wow that's so cool, and actually behind the scenes I'm telling you right like we face so many rejections every day. I face very difficult challenges and problems. People I have had to fire people. I remember having to deal with all kinds of problems in my company, and that's the kind of dark side of running a company that people don't hear about. And so for me it's like it's totally respectful and respectable to have a job that like a 9 to 5, work at a large company, or be a full-time parent, or don't have a job, maybe take some time off or travel, or be full-time mom, full-time dad. There's nothing wrong with any career path, and I think all of them are really great, of course, so long as you are happy. And that's something that was for me hard to learn because there's a famous quote like it's live the life that you want to live, not the life that others expect of you, right? And the life others expect of you, is usually like, oh, you want to be a doctor or a lawyer or something, especially for, your kids, right? You want your kids to make a lot of money, have a stable job. But the problem is many kids, they want to be an artist, they want to be a musician, or they want to be a teacher or something completely, or start a company, right? And so I think for me also just really important to for me to remember is like just continue to live the life that I really want to live, and then it's okay, like I face so many failures and everything, but at the end of the day like I feel happy for my job personally, but it's not for everyone. So I know if my friend did my job, they would hate it because they have to do so much, like I mentioned, like people rejecting me, me rejecting them, a lot of no's every day, stuff like that. You have to deal with very difficult situations. We had to fire people. We've had to, deal with for high frequency trading, because I worked in a controversial industry for my previous company. Also have to deal with the media spotlight, the attention, a lot of mostly negative attention, people saying, oh, you are, manipulating the market. So we have to answer questions and deal with, lots of, I guess, just media and lawyers and people hating us online and stuff. So it's definitely a lot, but for me overall, like, learning to have a life and a job that I can be happy with is very important. So yeah, I guess I don't know if there's anything else. I think those are the two main things. Is there's no such thing as a perfect job for everyone. You can be, work at whatever company, small company, big company, your own company, or no company. Maybe you just have kids and that's okay, or no kids and you just travel or something. I think that's all fine and okay. And so that's just really important to know. And I know I'm saying this, I'm like, oh, I'm a CEO, but you got to trust me on this. Like my best friends are, one of my close friends works at Costco. One of my best friends works at, these local companies here, and they're all really good jobs. And so there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah, I guess maybe I'll pause. I don't know if anyone has any questions or anything, but I'm happy to answer any questions if anyone has.